Welcome to the Shared Practices podcast. We have with us today Dr. David Ahearn from Design Ergo. George, I was actually really grateful that you guys built this relationship while I was in residency. You got Des Ergo as a sponsor, and they're a company I've been a fan of for a long time. So thank you for lining all that up.
Yeah, I think whenever we're looking for sponsors on the show, we always try to find companies that we're big fans of ourselves and, try to convince them to sponsor our show. And, luckily they saw the value in the startup season. Now we have them back on for this season.
Yeah. So the thing that surprised me is the larger umbrella that Design Ergo is, from both product manufacturing, remodel, like redesigning offices, but also from scratch start designing offices, and the passion that they have for all of it. So I love companies that are just kind of passionate about what they're doing and really care about the end product, the end experience. And so it's really fun to hear the founder of this company, who's just another dentist like us, but obviously a very, very driven dentist, where all that passion comes from and why they care so much about the things they care about. So that was what I was really excited about with this interview. I had no clue what to expect, and he had some great stories of the journey that it's taken them to get to where they are today.
Yeah, and I think his mindset in the interview is very, very keen. And it really it starts with him, but then it bleeds through the rest of the company. Every time you talk to somebody, they're all in on what they do. And so it's really awesome and refreshing.
Well, cool. Well, let's get into it. One frustrating thing when dealing with labs is waiting on a case and not knowing where stuff is. You or one of your team members has to call in, have the patient's info, you get a hold of the person, they go track it. It takes a while. It's inconvenient. Lab Pronto with Blue Sky Bio has introduced a solution that I hope we can get industry-wide for dental labs. And what they do is, once you've submitted your case, they notify the dentist via email and text throughout the process as the order is being fulfilled. So step 1, you place the order. Step 2, they receive it. They send it to a network of top-tier labs with relevant knowledge and experience. Step 3, the lab with immediate available time claims the job, prepares the relevant parts or digital plan. And then step 4, the lab completes the order and returns the part or dental service to the dentist. So what do they offer right now? Orthodontic services, including orthodontic plans, model printing, and aligner fabrication. Surgical guide services, including treatment planning and surgical guide fabrication. In the future, we're looking at things like denture design and fabrication, crown and bridge, radiology report. It's pretty exciting. Lab Pronto is changing the way we interact with our labs. Lab Pronto from Blue Sky Bio. Okay, welcome to this episode of the Shared Practices podcast. We have with us Dr. David Ahearn. And first off, I'm saying that correct, right? Ahearn?
South of Mason-Dixon line, you got it.
Okay, good. We've nailed that part. So let's see if we can do the rest of this here. You are are you the CEO, founder, head? What's your current title of Design Ergonomics and that umbrella of companies there?
President and CEO.
Okay.
But we'll probably get back to the fact that this was never intended to be a company.
Okay.
That'll come at a later point. So we don't really dwell much on titles.
This is good. So describe to us your background, your dental school, why you got into dentistry, and then we'll eventually get to how you got into this little side gig here that has turned into a little bit more than a side gig. I'd love to hear your story.
Well, I'll go back all the way.
Okay.
In high school, remember you trying to figure out what to be?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I had no clue. But one day I was thinking, as I was, probably ended junior year in high school, I thought, I don't know what I want to do, but there's probably 1,000 jobs. I mean, I'm making that up. I had no idea.
Sure.
And I can like hate 900 of them. And now we're down to 100, and I could probably reject most of those.
Okay.
Down to 10. I could pick from 10. I thought that was the most brilliant idea I'd had. People were asking me what I was going to be.
Yeah.
So that very day, I had a dental appointment. I had to walk across, hot spring day down to this crappy little institutional green 3-chair office, all the highlights magazines, which you don't remember because you're too young.
No, I remember highlights.
They're all dog-eared. It was like 2 years old.
Someone else already did all the matching.
All the connect the dots were already done. it was like there was boogers on it. It was disgusting. I opened the thing, it's horrible. And the dentist really wasn't paying attention to me because I wasn't the payer, right? I was just a bratty teenager.
Sure.
And it smelled like tooth, and it was horrible. And I walked out of there, and it was the first thing I could cross off my list. I went to no, we'll never do that job. Well, it was the only dental office I'd ever been in. It was a horrible little place, horrible little man, horrible. Like, it was so terrible. So that came off my list, and I became a researcher.
Okay.
And so fast forward through college and actually graduate program.
What kind of research? Okay.
I was doing genetic research. And as I got better and better, I got rewarded by being in a more and more isolated room with hoods and no windows, and wound up, long story, in a land grant college in a basement room with no windows.
Lovely.
And that I one day walked in and went like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. The research didn't, some of the research, I wasn't going to know for 10 years whether it was doing any good.
Sure.
And I just, at that point, said, I'm not utilizing my talents as a human, and I have to be in a big university. And so I had to redo that 1,000 job list. And
at what age were you? How old were you at this point?
I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
At that point. But I started to rework that, and ironically enough, wound up with a toothache because I had avoided going to the dentist all the way through college because I had that terrible dental experience that I hated. And so I had to ask somebody, kind of panicked, where do I go? And one of my fellow researchers said, oh, you go to this Dr. Atkinson, and he's really nice, and he'll, tell you what you need, and he'll figure. I walked in there, and the place was beautiful, and the people were really nice, and the guy was compassionate and communicated with me as a human and figured out how to budget the work that I needed, the root canal that I needed.
Right.
And I walked out of there and went, crap. That was the first thing off the damn list. And
now it's back on.
I have to reconsider my career future. And so I had given up a scholarship on the East Coast and moved to Michigan, and I had to figure out where I should go to dental school. Turns out Michigan's, at that time, one of the best dental schools on the planet.
Nice. And
I was still an outer state person.
Okay.
But I managed to go ahead and make communication. I was at Michigan State doing my bio research, went down there for a visit in November of whatever year that was, and somehow wound up in dental school, in spite of the fact that I was still missing prerequisites. That's another long story. That's a long story.
Okay, we'll skip that.
That was a long story. So, had a great experience there and wound up teaching at Michigan because
at the dental school?
Yeah. Okay. In spite of the fact that I was making a commitment to go ahead and be a practitioner and be in a place with windows, never in a basement again. Fact of the matter is, I wound up, you can't take the research out of somebody.
Sure.
So Simon had a great time at Michigan, really was a great program, wound up getting to know some of the great researchers there, but needed to come back east. If you grow up along the coast, you tend to wind up back there.
Sure.
So moved back to Massachusetts, committed to becoming the best associate you could ever have.
Okay.
I wanted to go ahead and find a job. I wanted to do great dentistry for someone. I wanted to go ahead and not have a business.
Which is
God has a sense of humor.
Which is funny because our whole podcast is about how to run a business, and it seems like sometimes people think they don't want that, and then it ends up happening anyways.
No. I knew I didn't want that.
Okay.
But it didn't work out. No, I am more unsuccessful at meeting the objectives so I absolutely didn't want that. Now, when I moved back here, the southeastern New England is a small region, and it doesn't have a lot of economic opportunity. In fact, this is old mill towns in our area. I got an associate job, and I thought I was doing just fine. And when the unemployment rate here hit 17.5%,
wow,
in the early 90s, my boss figured out that the solution to the problems in the practice were to free up my future. the Resolution Trust Corporation, the federal government, had closed all the regional banks in the area.
Okay.
There were no lenders. There were no jobs. There were certainly no dental jobs. And I had 90 days to find new work.
Okay.
And remember, I had been steadfastly planning. I've been studying how to do dentistry better. I had some ideas about how to go ahead and make the flow better. That probably was annoying my employer.
Right.
I didn't know that, or I had no cognition of that. And with 90 days, really no money of significance, no big plans, I had to create a future. To make a long story short, 110 days later, I was in a newly built building. From purchasing the land to actually equipping it, I built most of the equipment myself.
So you went from losing your job to 110 days later doing a scratch startup from land.
That's correct. It turns out that's a pretty good trick. I knew a few things about construction. I'd grown up in a family that built, and so I had some ideas about how you might do that.
That's phenomenal.
And so I didn't do it in 90 days. I did it in 110 days, and there was a dentist in our area who let me practice in his practice for 2 weeks, which was just enough time to go ahead and really be able to make the transition.
Wow.
So that turned out to be an interesting trick, and the pressure to go ahead and do that, many times the best meals get created under pressure.
Sure.
The best ideas come. And so I had a lot of pressure. The folks that I borrowed the money from to go ahead and build this office, they're the only lenders at that time. They make cement shoes for people to swim with if you don't pay the money back.
Okay. Kind of.
I don't look good in cement.
Backstreet lenders, some.
Yeah, I don't need. Well, we're not even talking backstreet lenders. We're talking some families, shall we say. So I was highly motivated to get the money back.
If our audience is complaining about lending issues, they can come talk to you.
Yeah, they come talk to me about lending issues. In fact, the story that I had forgotten to tell Samson, who you met, was that in addition to having to get the practice running in that time period and make money doing dentistry, I had to make money anywhere I could. So one of the other things is when word got around that I had built an office from dirt to seeing patients in 110 days,
yeah.
I got a contract from a group in Florida. They just had a hurricane. All the builders were busy building. And this group had a contract to build a dental clinic for a school system, and they couldn't get any builders. So I agreed to go build that, to make some money, and actually built it in Pennsylvania, and we're going to ship it to Florida.
This is like a modular clinic?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And so as it's shipping down, so I got money I don't really have further spent on that.
Yeah.
Which has to get down to Florida and get installed before I get my money back on that.
Fingers crossed.
To pay some of, and it gets sideswiped by a drunk driver in South Carolina.
Oh.
One of the modules. It's a big, one of those big like porno guy vans.
Oh.
Hits the side of and goes all the way down the building side. Blows out the tires on the carrier. Oh. When the police got there from South Carolina, they said, "Yeah, he don't have no license. I mean, he don't have no insurance."
Of course.
I mean,
of course.
So we took photos of the building in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it got to Florida, had all the replacement parts.
Oh my goodness.
And got that one up and running in 23 days.
Wow.
From the time it reached Florida.
So
I got my money back.
How much?
I didn't make enough money to pay off the cement shoe thing, but I got, it was like I made probably 30, 40 grand on, doing that.
How much actual construction did you have to do on that one while you're trying to do your own startup?
There was not a lot of sleep during that time.
Oh my goodness.
That has continued to this day, probably.
Sure.
I used to go, and so I was always designing better ways to do things. Well, we made that equipment for my own office. We made the equipment for that office, but we made the equipment for mine. When you make your own equipment for the first time, based on some things we had been thinking about, it's not the greatest equipment on day one.
Sure.
So we kept working to make that better. Hired some guys from NASA, actually a guy that reconfigured the shuttle control panel after Challenger. Hired them, hired some guys at MIT who understood the psychology of spaciousness. And so we just kept working. It now became an obsession to go ahead and make my own equipment better and better. And at that point, doctors started saying, well, where did this equipment come from? I said, well, I made it, but they said, well, can I have some? And I don't really want to, I don't want
This was for me.
I'm kind of busy. This was for me. Exactly. And so, and the practice has really taken off. And, in spite of the fact that the economy was doing terrible, just by doing the things that I thought were central to the principles, but also, a lot of what we did when we designed the equipment was we dealt with the psychology of spaciousness. And because there is a specific psychology to what makes space feel comfortable, and simultaneously, and it was work I didn't know at that time, buyer psychology. Dentists totally don't get buyer psychology. And yet companies, Walmart, Target, real companies spend millions of dollars every year studying how buyers think. And so part of the practice, the reason the practice took off wasn't me. A good part of it was you walked in and it just felt okay and it felt acceptable to receive treatment. And people I wouldn't understand why people would come and go, oh, okay, this is comfortable. I used to be afraid of dentists and I'll buy. And so,
well, I was going to say the psychology of spaciousness. So what would be an example of how that could negatively impact the patient experience versus positively impact the patient experience? What?
Well, I'll just give you a perfect example. It's fine to have over the patient handpieces.
Okay.
It's totally fine to have drills sitting there right in front, and it's comfortable to reach for them. It's not that efficient. It's fine in terms of its efficiency. But if you're asking a patient to make a buying decision who's slightly apprehensive and you get drills sitting in front of them staring at them,
right?
We don't see it anymore, but they totally get that. I mean, that's the basic one. But there are a whole bunch of things in what people see and don't see in a space. Magicians understand it. Dentists don't understand it. I have a patient who's a master magician, a world-class magician, and she will tell me about a trick she's going to do.
Okay.
Show me the trick. Show it how it's done, and then do it right in front of me, and I won't see it. Our brains edit a massive amount of the data that we're presented with. And so dentists don't see that. Dentists don't understand. I mean, most people don't understand the way we measure space is actually we don't have tape measures running in our heads. We use certain visual cues. And so when we pay attention to those cues, we can make a small space feel much bigger than it is, for example. So a lot of these things came from the MIT folks who were building the space station. You're going to put somebody in a little metal tube for 6 months up in space.
Okay.
You better have that worked out, or you're going to have somebody come down, their brain's going to be, it's going to be a jellyfish. Using those principles work.
I'm here in my master bedroom closet. It does not feel very spacious. It's where I'm recording from. Can you save me, or am I,
Yeah, we can actually. Yeah, there are actually some things you can do. We can send you some books.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Or get you a new space.
Perfect. So you've realized that some of these principles can apply to dentistry, and you're kind of continually refining this within your own office. You're refining the equipment, the way you're laying things out, the space. At what point do you decide, you know what? Okay, people keep bugging me. I need to turn this into an actual business. What was the moment?
I knew exactly what I needed to do. Remember, I wanted to be an associate. Certainly didn't want to make equipment for anybody else. I just wanted to have a little farm by the ocean. So I went to the big manufacturers in dentistry. And I said, I have these ideas for how we could do this. And so I went to not the biggest manufacturer. I went to the third biggest at the time, and I said, "Hey, we can go ahead and make rooms that are about, half as expensive and twice as productive." And they went, "Oh no," and I just thought I didn't understand. So I went to the next bigger manufacturer, and they told me why they didn't think it was a great idea. They thought the equipment was dumb and whatever. And so then I went to, I actually met Ken Austin, who was at that time the head of ADEC. And Ken said, well, wait a minute, you lost me at half the cost. And I was so mad. And, but I revere him to this day because he gave me an honest answer.
Yeah.
And he said, actually, you're not really my customer. I didn't understand that at all. And he said, well, the dealer's my customer. And you're the dealer's customer. And so the dealer tells me what they want me to make. And I was stunned, and I was pissed off, really.
Yeah.
And so at that point I said, nobody's going to make this for me. I just want to make it. So we just started, doctors started asking, we started making, and I went home to my wife and I said, honey, I got the little farm. If I build a big building right here and this doesn't work out, worst case, I got a really big garage. and God bless my spouse, Jennifer, like that she would put up with me for now 39 years. And she said, you go right ahead. So I have a really big garage is the good news because we outgrew that building in 2 years.
Okay.
So once we did that, we were all in.
Sure.
Because I was spending a bunch of money to go ahead and build that production capacity. And so fast forward to now, we're in a 70,000 square foot, dedicated manufacturing facility with all the high-tech tools. It's everything we want to go ahead and produce whatever we want. And what we do is this is still, remember, this was never intended to be a company.
Right.
So really, this is a very big user group.
Okay.
And the more we keep thinking that way, the more it's you and I, like I build for you. I don't, I build for me. I go ahead and, I go into practice and I see something that I can make more productive or easier or more comfortable for the patient. And we just come back and we build it. We've got, during the recession, 2008-9, we spent more money on R&D than the two biggest companies in the industry. Okay. Because we could.
Yeah.
Because we didn't care. I want to make this just better products for my peers. And so that's really what we do. And that is not going to stop. And there's no additional, it's us and dentists. That's it.
So the fantastic thing I love about that is that I love it when companies, and like you said, you're not even trying to be this company, but your values and what you're trying to do lines up with the values of your direct customers, which is dentists, versus like one of my pet peeves is when you have a financial advisor who sells insurance products or who gets like kickbacks from certain funds and things like that. And so it's like, yes, they're your advocate, but they also have financial incentives in another direction. And I feel like that's how a lot of the suppliers
here's one of the challenges. I want to let them off the hook a little bit.
Okay.
They don't know what they're doing. I know that sounds weird, but Boeing has test pilots.
Okay.
I lecture a lot, so I'm on the plane a lot, and I'm really thankful that Boeing has test pilots.
Yeah. Before
I get in the thing, somebody else got in the thing and put their neck on the line. So think about a dental company. We make a lot of money as dentists. So as a result, one of the issues is the dental companies don't want to hire me. They may have some dentist that they send some equipment to, but the guy's like, he's not producing much dentistry.
Sure.
They're not going to afford to hire me. When I do dentistry, I make a lot of money doing dentistry.
Right.
Because I'm really, really, really productive.
Right.
It's just no way that you have an industry that doesn't know how we do things. I go and test tomorrow. I'm going to be at the dental office and we're going to test out some new stuff. And we've got R&D guys going. We've got 4 R&D people just working dedicated on machining new things this week that I will test next week.
Wow.
And then we will change them the week after, and then I will test them again. We're in a 2-week cycle of improvement.
That blows my mind that you're just still this plugged into like actually developing and using new products in dentistry and trying to just get that incremental improvement a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better.
There's probably therapy. but I'm not going.
This is your
okay. I don't want to go ahead and get less obsessed. I have no intention.
This is your therapy.
Yeah.
You don't need therapy. You need just another product.
Yeah, we just need more things more problems. So send us. So anybody listening, send us problems. Send us things that are bugging you. And I mean, that's how this works. I mean, most of them came from me originally. That could get us to the 80% level, but now we're getting, in the oral surgery segment, in implantology, there are some things in implantology where some of the best doctors are getting stuck on just how they manage inventory during the procedure. Awesome. So, I'll get on a plane and go and work with those doctors, see what those problems are. And so we're creating, products in those areas, even things that we haven't done before.
That's awesome.
I couldn't be happier.
So you've mentioned some things that are of special interest to our audience, because this show is aimed predominantly at pre-owners and new owners. So kind of my generation of out of dental school, or maybe still in dental school in your final years, looking to buy a practice, looking to start up a practice. And you mentioned like overhead delivery versus like in front of the patient, and even like square footage issues. Let's talk about if someone was to be designing a practice from scratch, what would be some recommendations that you would give them that they probably wouldn't get from traditional designers of dental offices?
Let me go sideways for a second and talk about the fact that, you remember, I didn't want to have an equipment company. I certainly didn't want to have a design company. And yet we found with the equipment, when we used the equipment, it doubled or tripled and this is at first, and now it goes even beyond that, the productivity of an office. Well, if you do that, you're now quadrupling potentially the flow through the office. That changes all the ratios in the design. If you think of the design as a series of pipes through which people flow, the design of a space, a business, people flow through the business, because the person is what you're manufacturing on. So if you're, again, so there's this conveyor and the patient's on the conveyor, and it can't look like that because remember, it's got to feel, the psychology of space has got to work. It's got to feel like they're in a spa all the way through this. But the fact of the matter is you're getting paid when the conveyor carries them through this whole process, and somehow a tooth changes its state, and then they wound up through billing and out the door. Well, all the ratios are wrong once you change the productivity. So we had to change the design. So I went to the designers' dental offices, and they were interested in changing what they did.
Same story.
Well, because it turns out that the architects get paid a commission for the casework. So they're getting money for making things busier and more expensive. I didn't know that either. So when I said, well, why not, would you design? Here we have a simpler, less expensive design that chews up a lot less square footage. And they went, no, we really like the way we design. Yeah, because you sell more cabinets. So that didn't work either. So again, luckily I had a construction background. So we hired some great folks in the construction side of things and started actually formally working on making the physical design better. So, rules of thumb, there are two different rules of thumb for what you need in a design. You're doing a startup design, you need to go ahead and get enough capacity. What I see more than anything for practices starting up is they don't build enough basic treatment capacity. The majority of dental offices in the United States are like under 5 chairs. They're like 4.2 chairs or something. You'll never go ahead unless you're in some little boutique and you're the 1 in 1,000 dentist that becomes the man in Manhattan. Okay. You're never going to make it, that way. So you need enough capacity because, if you think about it, you got 50 new patients come in a month. Which you're going to get to at some point to be successful. So you got 50 new patients a month. That's about 40 hygiene hours coming back in 6 months. Well, that's a week of hygiene that you just added in 6 months. Now, you only add that twice a year, so the math's a little bit more complicated yet. But if you are not constantly growing capacity, pretty soon, and you're doing great dentistry. So here you are, I'm obsessed. So you're doing great dentistry, and that dentistry is going to last for 20, 30 years. What happens if you're in a limited number of rooms? Pretty soon, you're checking hygiene patient. What you're doing is you're admiring great dentistry that you did 20 years ago.
Right.
There's no money to be made doing that.
You need space to grow.
So either you could kick out your good patients and just keep the bad ones that weren't taking care of things. I don't think that's really there's an ethical issue there.
Right.
But the dentists start out without enough capacity and the ability to add capacity, and then they wind up stifling their practice so there's 5 years that they're elated as they grow up to fill that 5 chairs. And then there's 10 years where the money plateaus and they're really frustrated, and there's no more opportunity for staff members. So staff members have to leave, and you can wind up in a really, not very nice situation 15 years out. So the magic is to plan for enough capacity. You don't have to equip it, but you need to have enough chairs early on, enough rooms early on, so that you can grow to a certain level. Now Scott Luna has taken that to be, a 10 chair as an ideal. Well, that's certainly, if you're in Texas in a community that's adding, 100 people a month, you could do that. You could scale up and fill that thing in no time.
Yep.
In my area, I'm in an area in New England that's a negative growth area. So as we get 150 to 200 new patients a month, the reality is they're probably coming from somebody else's office.
Sure.
That's just the way it is, because they're not moving into town. So you need to be aware of that demographic, but you certainly don't start a 3, 4, or 5 chair office. I just wouldn't do it.
One of my best friends, Abe, went to go try on some loops with Q-Optics, and he sent me a text of his angle of declination from the side. So there's this picture of him with his old loops on, and then a new picture with the Q-Optics loop on. His question was, is it really this big of a difference? It was about a 15-degree difference in how far forward he was having to angle his head. He's going from with the Q-Optics loops on, he had almost like a slightly forward neutral head position. With his old loops, you could tell he was leaning his head forward and was having to strain his neck every single day to do dentistry. So to answer the question, is it really that big of a difference? Yes, absolutely. 15 degrees, it's huge. He was blown away. He's loved them. I've loved them. You should try them out. If you want to test run a pair of Q-Optics loops against your old loops, email sales@qoptics.com and include the promo code SP19 to get a discount off your loops and light combo.
So, and it's okay if you don't know these numbers, what square footage can you fit an operatory into versus what are averages?
Totally know these numbers. I totally know these numbers.
I figured you would.
So here's what you want to do. So here's what you want to do. If you're start up and you're really trying to squeeze things economically, the rule of thumb in the industry, not in the Dave Ahearn world, in the industry is 450 to 500 square feet per treatment room. So if you want a 5-chair office, 500 square feet times 5, 2,500 square feet. That's the rule of thumb in the industry.
500 square foot times 5.
Times 5 to fit in all the other space.
Okay, so that's accounting for the rest of the office.
That's right. That accounts for so you just do the math that way. There are two things. One, we're able to do that in 320 square feet per room.
Okay.
So 10 chair, 3,200 square feet. So you're going to get a 5-chair, 2,500 square feet. We're going to get a 10-chair, 3,200 square feet.
Okay.
That's kind of better math. So there's that part of it. Now, there are other pieces which are that as you go ahead and scale up, that's probably not going to be enough space for all of if you're going to pursue what we would refer to as a category 1 office, to be the best office in town.
Sure.
You're going to need other admin space. You're going to grow other spaces. But, we have a 17-point checklist for our design work. and it's actually that list is expanding or has subsets. But in that category, when we look at offices, coming in from designed by other people, we'll see them down in the 350, 400 square foot per treatment room range.
Okay.
But they got 7 chairs in whatever the space is, and you look at the staff lounge and it's got 5 seats. Well, you got a 7-chair office, you're going to have 10 people working there.
Sure.
Like, so how are we ever going to eat lunch together? So you can't do in getting this space down. You can't do it by just cheating the admin support spaces.
So the ratio of the actual operatory size to the rest of the office is probably off at that point.
Yeah, the ratio's off, because what they'll do is they'll make people think that we make small operatories. It's really not how we get this space. We get this space, that's 20% of the space saving.
Okay.
We get this space by increasing the flow. Literally, we increase the flow of traffic. We're going to have a smaller waiting room because we're going to have more treatment room capacity. I mean, you see all the time, if I want to win an award for a design, you make a giant waiting room and stand back, get a great picture of it. That's a warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a warehouse. Okay, first of all, so it's a warehouse. Nobody makes money sitting there. No patient's happy sitting there. In addition, when you've got people, in that warehouse, I mean, think about it this way. Say I build the big warehouse, the waiting room, and now I'm running on time, so the warehouse is empty, which is what a warehouse should be for just in time.
Right.
So now you come in as a new patient to this warehouse with 15 chairs, and there's nobody there. You ever been to a restaurant? Somebody recommended a restaurant to you, said, this restaurant's awesome, and you go and it's empty.
Like, am I in the right place?
Maybe this restaurant isn't great.
Right.
Okay. So you actually have to worry if you're going to run on time, which we are going to run on time, because that's how a manufacturing facility should run. And so if there are dentists listening and they're not running on time, there's an issue. Okay. And it's not, well, this patient is some special problem. No. There's a process to going ahead and getting dentistry done. And so when you come visit, which you should, we're going to show you how to run on time. And if you run on time, the number of seats you need in the waiting room is not very many. And I don't want to have many extra, because I want to have that busy enough that when the new patient walks in, they go, oh, this place is happening.
Yeah. So that
is really, really important.
Of
all of this psychology matters. All of it matters. Sound, smell, lighting levels, all of this matters. And so, I should be embarrassed about the number of hours I've spent. I bet I've spent 5,000 hours on, the study of psychology, spaciousness. No, it's probably conservative. It's probably headed closer to 10. I mean, all of the things matter.
Well, and then all
every sight line,
designing it and then getting feedback and building it, and you add in all that, and then your actual application of the research that skyrockets the number right there.
Yeah. And we've at this point built, thousands and thousands. Des Ergo has built thousands and thousands of offices. We're going to build, close to 200 offices this year.
Wow.
Okay. So, and we'll build, closer to 250 next year. We've got the capacity now. We didn't have the capacity before we built the new factory to go ahead and serve those clients. So we couldn't design more designs because nobody else, if we couldn't build the equipment, nobody else could build the equipment. So now we've got the capacity to do both, and we're going to increase on the design side.
So on the design side, if someone has acquired a practice and say that, it's a profitable practice, the numbers are good, they're happy about things, but the layout isn't great, how often are you guys doing kind of remodels, and how feasible is that? At that point, you're probably tearing down a lot. It's probably a pretty big remodel if they're trying to fit kind of your model or your style of doing.
It's a great question, because mostly what people are going to do is they're going to want to buy in a practice.
Right.
And so this is a criticism of me. For years, I didn't feel like dealing with low performance problems. My mission was to go ahead and design, equip, and train for the highest performing practices. And so that's who we work with. That was that was my obsession.
So how did you define that? You know, who was your ideal client at that period of time?
Well, that's somebody producing it 3 times, or they maybe came to us, they're producing it twice the national average, and they had, a goal to go ahead and double that.
Okay.
So somebody that really wanted to become a, peak performer.
Sure.
But the reality was, in terms of meeting my mission, which is to go ahead and really impact the industry, I had to be willing to go ahead and say, we're not just practicing with working with the most elite practices. We want to work with doctors that are aspiring, period, which totally changes the equation and led to a whole new level of challenge for us. Because my attitude before was, well, if you want to become this peak performer, you just like throw out all this crap that you got. And because a manufacturer, an auto plant, they'll spend $1 billion to retool the factory floor.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, they'll spend $1 billion and you won't go ahead and just throw out all this old crap.
Right.
Well, I'm not wrong, but you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so, I had to go ahead and step back and go, wait a minute. We need to help somebody that probably is in fear. Hey, you bought this practice and it can make a living, but oh my God, I got student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple of young kids, and I had to dial back to to my years when I had nothing. And so what we did
was those
we
years you just built a practice in 110 days. So you got to dial back.
Yeah, but I was running scared.
I know,
okay. So, and I don't want other people to have to do that.
Sure.
Because we'd already figured out the solutions. So what we did was we had these practices that we had equipped, and we had doctors that called us back and said, you changed my life. And, I've doubled what I did, just by doing what you told us to do. And so I felt so righteous that, that this was all was obviously working out amazing. And so a few years ago, my staff said, well, how do you know they're really getting the full benefit from everything we've done? And I went, I don't know. Why don't you go see them? So we put a couple people on planes and went to see these, some raving fans. And quite frankly, they came back, they were horrified. Because the doctors had all this benefit. They were thrilled. And half of the stuff that we knew, they didn't know. Because they had only picked up, picture you come to visit us, and you're in, this knuckle dragging state is what I would like. Where I was, as a professor, that's where I was. I didn't know how to produce. I knew I was way more successful than other people, but it's nothing compared to what we've learned in this journey of learn how to manufacture like Toyota.
Sure.
So they came back and they were horrified. And so I realized that I was dead wrong. And what we needed to do first and foremost was be able to elevate the thinking of doctors who, how many hours of production science did you have in dental school?
0, probably like.
That's funny, right?
Negative 10.
Negative 10. The people that were like professors with me, their practices were horrible in terms of the production. They were good guys and they were doing good dentistry, but they didn't know how to produce.
Sure.
So what we had to do is we had to realize that we need to have a training component purely about production. Nothing about how you manage the practice, just about the productive ability of the practice. And so many times, so first of all, that was to take our existing practices who had doubled and double them again. So we had an obligation to those practices, even though they didn't know we did. We said, like, we got to tell them, we'll come out and we'll take you to the next level.
Sure.
And then when we came back, we said, wait a minute. We need a method of taking practices. Somebody buys this crappy little practice, and maybe it's pretty looking or whatever, but it's not going to be very productive. The average doctor production is like $450 an hour. It's like, I don't know what I do with it. And it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is really true. And so, I don't know what I do with the rest of the 3/4 of the hour, quite frankly. I'll be quite frank with you. So we need to take those practices. So you get a practice like that, we need to go ahead and you're not going to have the money to go ahead and redo it.
Right.
So we need to go ahead and figure out how we could inexpensively apply the tools that we use to that practice, moving no walls and buying a negligible amount of stuff.
Okay.
Like not core equipment. We need to go ahead and work around what they have, reconfigure how you did it, get those practices to produce enough that you wouldn't be a hostage to it.
This makes complete sense that if you've got an existing office, an existing doctor who wants to improve, if you can get them to improve in their existing state and see the efficiencies and understand what they can do better, now doing a remodel is not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, then now you have the revenue and the knowledge, and it's more the knowledge is the most important part, actually. Even though you've got the revenue, it's the doctor going, I'm a manufacturer. The system matters. I now understand that, 10% of your time in a procedure is handpiece time. 90% of the time is go and gets and waits. 90% of the time is not doing dentistry.
Yeah.
So, people go to all these classes on how to do a procedure more efficiently. The procedure is 10% of your time. It's all the other stuff I don't work on any of the people say, oh, you teach me how to do a better endo? Nope. It's irrelevant. Okay. There's like 8 million people going to teach you that. I'm going to teach you how to not waste the 90% of the time. We're going to cut out half of the 90%. And you can keep doing the dentistry just the way you do it now. I don't really care. I mean, I do. And I coach my dentists, in the 2 practices. I mean, most of my time is spent coaching them, within the system. So they could go faster on that too, but that's not really where the time say. They come in, doctors come in, come out of school, wind up as our associate. Maddie's been with us for a little over a year. She's like $900 an hour.
Nice.
Okay. She someday I'm going to teach her to actually be able to sell. She's the dentistry automatically winds up in that kind of range.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. And so now, fast forward, if I didn't want to build equipment and I didn't want to design offices, I didn't want to train people. We got people in, I don't know how many states right now. There's people flying all over the country training, that are part of our system. Many of them have come through the dental practices. Erica, who runs that program, ran one of the dental offices, but was an assistant of mine a decade ago. And, and Angie, who's flying out of Florida, we get people from, all corners now getting those practices to do our productive levels. It's really exciting.
How much of this is awesome. How much of this is training assistants and team members versus training the dentist? Because it sounds like a lot of the inefficiencies are in the way that the dentist and the assistant are interacting and prepared for the procedure and have things on hand and accessible.
It's a great question, Richard. It's the right question, because what happens is you have a dentist that has no idea and zero training in how to go ahead and make an office run, like making the decision. And then you've got assistants who learn from a dentist who had no idea how to do this and may have learned it in another office,
right,
and may be convinced that what they learned, because they learned from a super nice dentist, I'm sure, that had no clue. And so they come in with conviction that that's the right way to go. And nobody did any study on how to do this. They went to somebody that had a class that had done no science. And so it's a horrible situation. Here's what we find. In our over-the-shoulder programs, when staff come to us, the doctors, it takes them a while to figure this out. Usually as the assistants will get here, and about 45 minutes in, they look kind of agitated because they just realize that all the stuff they're doing it's not smart. So the assistants get it almost instantly. The doctors, it takes them longer because we have a decade of working on it, and now we have to throw out a whole bunch of ways we were doing it. And so the staff needs buy-in, no question about it. And so a fair amount of time, it depends on the different programs we have for on-the-site training, but a fair amount of time is spent with the staff. The staff has to buy in. Ultimately, really the dentist doesn't have to buy in. If the staff buys in, just make the change.
Right.
But you need the doctor to go ahead and.
So I want to lay this out. One of the themes of this podcast is that we've got a roadmap. So our seasons of our podcast are laid out chronologically with the topics that you'd care about coming out of dental school. So season 1 was, should I own a dental practice? Do I want to own a dental practice? And the answer for you was no. But
yeah, the answer for me was no.
Right.
It's I want to be my associate. Okay. So my associates produce over $1,000 an hour.
Wow.
My associates have homes and nice cars, and they show up, they work a 4-day week. I mean, I want to, like, when I retire,
You need to go work for yourself.
I'm going to be my associate.
Right.
I would be my associate. I mean, they got a coach.
That's
I mean, I
true.
go, I just answer, they send me, photos of the x-rays and things. And so I'm like, here's what I do on that case.
Yeah.
I mean, I want that job.
Right.
If I had that job, none of this would have happened.
That's frustrating.
None of this would have happened. No, it's totally fine. God has a sense of humor, because like none of this would have been possible for everybody if I had that.
Well, so what I'm getting at is our next season was then acquisitions, and we had a season on startups, and now we're into case acceptance. We're into ownership topics.
Yeah, because you probably couldn't find an associate position, working for me. Anyway,
no, it's true. So I like to lay things out for people in the order that they would like encounter it. So you guys offer so much at Design Ergonomics, between the office layout, the training, your equipment. Let's take me, because I'm spoiled as the show host. I can use myself as an example. So I'm going to get out of the Army in 2.5 years, and I'm going to try and acquire a practice. If I can't find the perfect practice, or at least one that meets all of the criteria that we want, then I'll do a startup. So if I wanted to kind of walk through the order of your guys' services and trainings and involvement with you guys, what would be the starting point for me? So say that I'm not yet in an ownership position. Is there any courses that are really geared at helping someone in my situation be more productive, even though I'm not the owner yet?
I give a program around the country, mainly for clinical staff, called This Can All Be Easier. And if you can find that in one of the regional lectures, I think I'm giving that at Rocky Mountain this year, coming up, 2019. For example, you can check with thisergo.com to see, when that course is offered. That's a roadmap to productivity.
Okay.
That's here's how you go ahead. I give on a more limited, I think I'm giving that in Texas too this coming year. So that, I mean, that's just a roadmap for how to just do this. Yeah. Mechanically, that's how you do it.
Cool.
There's a lecture that I give, Who Are All These People, which is about the people side of things from a logistics side.
Okay.
That's a pretty useful one. Those are things you can start with.
Okay. So
visiting an office, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of offices around the country. So, usually we can find somebody you can beg a visit. It's not the same as, I mean, again, remember I've said that, these doctors have doubled, the doctors we train with, they average, over almost heading towards $900 an hour in production. So they're twice the national average in production, but they're still, compared to what we know, which is doctors doing $1,600 an hour, $2,000 an hour in production, you're not going to see all of it, but that's another good way to go. And the other thing is, for your listeners, I'll probably get in trouble for this.
Samson's there taking
somewhere. Notes. Yeah. But we have a guide to production. And why don't you figure out a way, if they say they're from shared practices, we'll give them a guide.
Cool.
And that's a couple $100.
Yeah, I was just looking.
That's for the manual
on your website. It was like $250 something on.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and do that.
Cool.
Okay. But it's got a catch. I'm not going to give that away free. My real goal in all of this is dentists. One of the things that really has touched me, and I mean deeply, is how generous, how good the people of dentistry are. That, there are a couple people that I went to dental school with that were just, they didn't have a generous heart, but most of them were really, really, really good people and trying to give back, trying to make a difference. I was very, that was not expected. I mean, I wasn't expecting creeps, but I wasn't I didn't go in saying I'm going, I mean, if you're going to the ministry, you think I'm meeting charitable people. I'm so moved by what dentists are trying to do. But what happens is dentists wind up needy because they don't know how to do this. And then they wind up all about them, but in the fight for survival, and they forget. So I'm going to get dentists so that they're not going to be needy. So you're going to be in abundance. If I will do that for you and for your listeners, I want something back. I want some charity.
Okay.
Because ultimately, I'll be straightforward. Ultimately, what this is about for me is doctors being able to comfortably give away 10% of their earnings.
Wow.
I want doctors making a lot of money. I want doctors giving away $100,000 a year because they can.
Sure.
And we're working towards that. Ultimately, what I finally realized when all these other things worked, that I can only give away so much a year. We just built with Scheduling Institute in Atlanta. We just built a new, really it's probably the best dental clinic in Central America in the Dominican Republic. And it's a really amazing facility. But I did that because I could. If we do this right, then we've got 1,000 doctors around the country giving away $40 million of dentistry a year. And that for me would like complete the circle.
That's all.
That's really that's what I'm about. So we're going to give you a manual, but the manual comes with a string. You're going to get prosperous. And when you get prosperous, give some back. And that's for us, it's a day of charity. What got us started, a typical dentist gives away somewhere around $20,000 of dentistry a year, just free care. Sure. We're able to go ahead. Our typical Dentistry of the Heart Day, which we started, Vince Monticello in Florida started, we do about $60,000 of dentistry that day.
Wow.
So if you think that's a 40, if you're giving away 20 in the year and all of a sudden in one day you can do 60, there's a $40,000 differential times 1,000 doctors.
That's awesome.
So that's all the doctors have to do. So that's how we think about this.
Thank you so much, both for the offer and for the vision associated with that. If someone wanted to come volunteer at your Dominican Republic office that you've built out there, is there a way for either dental students or current dentists to come get involved with that?
Yes, there are. And that's either by contacting World Mission Partners or contacting us at Desergo, DESERGO.com. We can go ahead and, our Scheduling Institute, we can go ahead and make sure to get you in touch with the folks that do the scheduling there. And again, that's in partnership with World Mission Partners, and they do just a great job of getting people down. And we're going to be expanding that program next year. So
that's awesome. Do you know what kind of dentistry they're doing down there? Some dental students are looking to sometimes whatever their dental school opportunities are, they don't get volume and extractions, or maybe they don't get volume.
You get plenty of volume and extractions there.
That's what I was asking.
And we had some dentists that actually, we built the facility, and then some dentists actually contributed a mobile van too that actually can go out. These are largely Haitian refugees that walked from Haiti to the Dominican Republic for a better life.
Wow.
Just to get a mental image of this. So you're walking to the Dominican for a better life. Tells you something.
Wow.
And so we've actually visited the sugarcane slums, the Batays, and where they have nothing. There's a kid walking around with a stick, and that's his only toy. And so the van now goes out there too. So we got the two ways to do this charity. And I would encourage anybody. You'll do a lot of extractions, and you'll a lot of basic care.
Sure.
We're actually now next year, I hope, going to help train the dentists down there. I was amazed that it only costs $5,600 a year to go to dental school. I thought, that's great. It turns out you get what you pay for. So we've got to do a training facility now for the dentists there to hope to bring their skills up to the next level.
Wow.
So, but please encourage people to go ahead and see if they can spend some time down there.
Well, this is awesome. I did not expect that you would share this with us, and I also didn't expect that you'd have that challenge, which is ultimately one of the reasons I got into dentistry as well. I did a humanitarian trip down to Guatemala, and I had been an international relations major before. And someone told me, they said, don't do international relations because that's like such a generic, worthless degree, was what someone kind of told me. They said, learn medicine or learn business or learn, dentistry is what it ended up being. And then go do that internationally and give back with that. So you're living that and you're doing that. And that's something that
Richard,
someday I hope to aspire to.
You're going to be able to do that. It's the profession allows us to bypass all the bureaucracy and just give.
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the things that's amazing. It's not because you see how much of most charitable giving, the money gets chewed up in the bureaucracy. This is a way we could just go give to people in need.
one-on-one. Yeah.
One-on-one. It's just it's a thing that was unexpected that for me, that we'd be able to make that much impact,
That's awesome.
for others.
Well, we will have links to all of this in the show notes. So we're going to have links to designergonomics.com, which we have in every show because you guys are sponsoring this season of the podcast, but including, I'll try and get specific links for the Dominican Republic, and then also instructions on how people can get access to that incredible manual that you have there, as well as I'll try and get links to any of your upcoming speaking engagements. So if someone wanted to go see you live, wanted to get some of this training, maybe someone wanted to bring their team members to get them trained. This is awesome. I really want to come out and see your guys' facilities. I really
come visit.
Want to come tour your offices and learn from you guys, because not that the Army builds inefficiency into its dentistry, but it's a very comfortable setting where you have one dental assistant and one chair, and often you feel like you could be doing more. So I'm excited to learn how to step up that process, and maybe
we should probably work backwards and like influence the Army to go ahead, because it's ultimately you'll be paying the tax money that pays for that.
Yeah. No,
I would like to get the Army really efficient. Maybe we should work on that.
No,
maybe we should.
That would take a lifetime of dedication.
Yeah,
and
never mind.
May or may not occur, even with a lifetime of dedication.
Never mind. Let's just work on all the guys in this women in this podcast.
Perfect.
We'll do that.
Perfect.
Thank you for inviting us, Richard. It's really been a delight to do this, and I look forward to what we can do for all the people listening.
Perfect.
In the future.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, welcome back, George. That was a roller coaster. I don't think that we can appreciate enough the scratch start from ground to functioning practice in 110 days. Like, that still just blows my mind. Like, out of control, because for some people that process, like lease negotiations and like finding a property, like that can take like a year for some people if it gets really drawn out. To just like say, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to build this whole thing myself. Like that's the kind of dentist that he was.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, 110 days is like construction, just like construction on like from taking a built up location,
doing the build out,
to like finishing construction, and that's like a quick construction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's an efficient build out.
Yeah, no, that's insane.
Some amazing business expertise, the way he thinks about things. One of the things that he talked about was efficiency in the operatory, and the fact that 90% of the time maybe we're not doing dentistry. So if our operatories aren't set up the right way, if our assistants aren't trained to understand these things, then a lot of the time the handpiece is not running. So maybe 10% of the time the handpiece is actually running and we're actually doing the dentistry, and 90% of the time it's wasted getting different things, waiting on different things. And that's not true across the board. I think you're pretty efficient, and the fact that you've got a hygienist who does your anesthetic sometimes, and you've got an EFTA filling, you're pretty dang efficient when it comes to that time that you sit down and actually start working, which I'm totally jealous.
Yeah, and it goes to show that the efficiency pays off, because I use the rest of my time to do nothing. So it works out well.
I think that's a little teaser for a future episode, that that's a efficiency is another word for laziness. So George is just very, very efficient.
Yeah.
But so one of the things I didn't realize is that Design Ergonomics has this course, and we talk about it in some of our ads, the reboot training, where they come out to your office and help get your team on board with this mindset, because it's really a mindset thing. If your team doesn't value your time as the doctor and isn't building every moment and thinking about the way that we lay things out, the way we have stuff ready around this idea of not wasting the doctor's time, it's hard to get them on board with that. Some people just don't get it. And this is one of these trainings that can really increase the efficiency and productivity of your office. So that was just something cool that I didn't realize when we got involved with them, that they had so much expertise around.
Yeah, and I think the emphasis that they put, and as they should, on the team aspect of it, without really, I think the doctor can be on board, but if the team isn't, then nothing's really going to happen.
Yeah, totally. Another thing I love that he talked about was, if you're going to do a scratch startup, and you have control over the number of operatories that you can build more. You don't need to equip them, but if you plan on growing, I thought that was interesting. You could see like a early growth and then really hit a plateau 5 to 10 years into your practice where you just can't really grow any further because you're in like a 4 operatory practice. Unless you're Justin Short and you can just do everything 3 days in 3 operatories. But for everyone else that continues to grow, having those extra operatories to bring on an associate, to bring on more hygienists, even you've seen that within the past couple months.
Oh yeah. I think that was one thing that I was pretty big on, was trying to find an acquisition that had the sufficient number of operatories. We have 8. Realistically, we walked into the office and they were using 4. I mean, they happened to use all 8 rooms, but like they didn't really need them. Like, anyway, so yeah, I mean, definitely operatories are like the one thing that's not easily changeable by your office. Everything else is relatively, fluid, but your space is very, very solid.
So what would be like, now that you're in it, do you feel like 8 is enough, or do you feel like you wish you had a few more?
It's funny. Like I think 8 is good, but sometimes I'm like, 10 wouldn't have been bad.
Yeah.
I've actually thought that a couple times, but 8's plenty. I mean, at that point, it's just scheduling inefficiency, I think.
Totally.
With 2 doctors.
And you're making it work as well in terms of like overlapping of doctors' schedules and days. You can really get into that and make an 8 operatory practice if you're doing 3 days of Justin Short style practicing with one dentist, and then you do another 3 days with another dentist, or another 2 days. You can really get the most out of those 8 operatories.
Yeah, and I think 8's a good number for a 2-doctor office. I think 5 is kind of the minimum for a 1-doctor office, in my opinion.
Cool. So if you guys are interested, we'll have links to all of that stuff with Design Ergonomics in the show notes. I really want to go out and visit their practice. They've got some dates in January, which actually now might not work for me, but you can go out and see the way that they have their practices set up. You can see their manufacturing facilities, and they train on the most efficient way to optimize using their equipment. Because like they said, a lot of times they'll equip an office and then they sent people out to go check out how people are using it, and they weren't implementing the full like methodology that they have in mind when they design this equipment. So going out and seeing what's possible, but also how to use their equipment and their layout in the most efficient way possible is extremely valuable. And it's not like they're charging some crazy amount to go, they make the money when they design your office or when they sell some equipment. So they don't mind you coming out and learning. So the education part of it from visiting is free. So why not?
Yeah. And my understanding is that they have spotlight practices all over the country.
Yeah.
So,
and they're doing that more and more, where they're trying to make it so that people have to travel less to go see some of these offices who are really maximizing that efficiency.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Well, cool. Well, great episode, George. Thanks for talking with us again. I'm jealous of your lifestyle these days. You're crushing it, and it's exciting to see it all work out for you.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's been fun, and I'll see you guys next week on the Shared Practices podcast. On the Shared Practices podcast. On the Shared Practices podcast. On the Shared Practices.